Hello and welcome back to my channel where I like to have fun with all things beauty while being critical about what I accept into my collection. Today is a Pat McGrath update video. So this might be one of the shortest videos ever on my channel. My main goal is to not have a lot of editing time so that I can get the information up and out as quickly as humanly possible. So if this is a little bit messy, just know that I do typically try to go out of my way to cut things out like pauses and redundancy and not making sense. I'm going to be doing less of that because this is all about time. So I want to get the information out there. And unfortunately, this is a very, very different video than I thought I was going to be making today. My mission was to put to bed the rumor about the Pat McGrath formulas changing. So we had heard from both Sephora employees and Pat McGrath reps, multiple Pat McGrath reps have said that the formulas of the older palettes will be changing. They will be converting the baked formulas to pressed formulas. So that's this quadrant here. This is my original Bronze Seduction palette. And because this was one of the first ones that popped up new at Sephora in the middle of the night a couple weeks ago, I figured this would be a good one to get because it has a good amount of these different baked formulas that we've seen from her over the years. I just thought it would be a good test piece, and it's a great palette. And up until this point, we haven't seen any photos of these new palettes from Sephora. Again, I want to cut down on editing, so I'm not going to insert a bunch of screenshots, but I have screenshots of people asking Sephora itself, why is this new? What is different about this palette? And we had an answer from an employee saying that the baked shades were being replaced. We all knew they needed to replace these mattes. These mattes that have PTFE in them, it's not an ingredient that Sephora is willing to sell in 2025, so we knew they had to reformulate those. That was the original speculation why they had a deep discount of all the Pat McGrath Motherships at the end of last year, all the older ones, all the ones that had PTFE in the mattes. That was the original reason given for those being sold off. However, since Mothership 10, 11, and 12 now don't have the baked shades anymore, people started to get curious. Are they still in production? Are we still going to see older motherships with those formulas if they're not making them in the new palettes anymore? I was under the impression at that point that nothing was actually changing with the older palettes, since none of the rumors really panned out. They weren't changing labs, there were no additional ingredients that had issues in the shimmer shades, and it didn't seem to be just about money. So I assumed all of those OG palettes were safe. However, after that, we had an article come out talking about Pat McGrath financial struggles within the company, them doing a lot of layoffs and having just, turbulence in the workplace, things like that. After that came out, we heard about the issues with Sephora and the number of returns made with the Mothership palettes at Sephora that was the cause of some of these financial issues. The number one reason given for these returns were people either having irritation or fallout because of these baked special shades. At that point, I had assumed that they were just going to not sell them anymore. They were just going to sell the newer motherships and that would be that. However, that's when we had the leak on the Facebook group. And all of this I cover in my last video on this subject, but there was a leak from an employee talking about these baked shades being replaced. Then in the middle of the night with no announcement, Sephora drops Bronze Seduction, Utopian Dream, and Divine Rose 1, all mysteriously back for sale and listed as new. Then we had the secondary confirmation from Sephora employees. I am saying all of this to stress the fact that I didn't make this up. This was not an angle from me in any way, shape, or form. My sole concern was the fact that I am a huge fan of these special shades. They are my favorite. They are irreplaceable in my collection. I have nothing that compares to them. So when I heard they were getting rid of these and replacing them with pressed shimmers that frankly are completely unremarkable in my collection, I was highly disappointed, so I was watching this story quite closely. I heard a few other people talk about it, but nobody seemed willing to go to Sephora and just buy a palette. I mean, the safety net is you can just return it. So I was waiting for somebody else to do that. Frankly, I was waiting for somebody who makes money on YouTube to do that because I lose money on YouTube. I don't make money on YouTube. I had very little ability to justify spending $110 picking this up just for science, just to look at the shimmer formula in this and compare it to the old one, knowing that it's not a formula that I like, so I don't want it. I waited like a week. Finally, because nobody else was doing that, I decided I will go ahead and do it and I'll just return it. Luckily, there's a Sephora close to me. It's not the end of the world. Fast forward to today. This baby finally arrived. I'm not even gonna lie, when I opened it, I just stared at it for like 10 minutes in disbelief. I couldn't believe after all of the back and forth, all of the digging, all of the sleuthing, all of the people contacting people, trying to find more information, all to open this and find out that it is the same. These are baked shades. They are not pressed in any way, shape, or form. I realized that right away. I did not have to look at ingredients to know that nothing has changed in this new palette. So then I decided to go ahead and look at the ingredients. So yes, the mattes have been reformulated, great. But I looked at Astral Luna Gold, this guy in the corner. An easy choice because guaranteed customers at Sephora would be complaining about the fallout. I looked at the ingredients and then I looked at the original ingredients and there is no difference except for alumina is not in the new one. But when I dug around on that one, that doesn't make a huge difference in the overall formula, and I can tell you from swatching, it looks identical. So I don't believe that that ingredient really had anything to do with the overall appearance of the shade. Ingredient fluctuations are not out of the ordinary. I've seen vitamin E in and out and all kinds of little tweaks just based on subtle changes, so I don't believe that any of that has any notable or significant difference. In fact, I can even confirm that further because I did one palette, one eye, the other palette, the other eye, and on this eye where I used the new palette, the fallout was worse than the original. So they really truly did not change a thing here. For a lot of Pat Mcgrath fans, that is good news. However, I am not celebrating yet because I am still not convinced that we couldn't see changes down the road. Pat Mcgrath reps have already confirmed that every retailer other than Sephora has at least a year's worth of stock of the newer motherships that were produced before 2025. So there is still a chance that this is Sephora selling off old stock. The thing that is confusing is that I thought they did that already, but I mean, the mattes are different now, so I don't know. Maybe they had some amount of reformulated mattes and not reformulated shimmers, and they're selling that first. I have no idea. I also have been told by many of people over on TikTok that the Pat Mcgrath Instagram has informed everybody that they're not changing the bake shades. That doesn't hold a lot of water with me because Pat Mcgrath's social media is so incredibly unreliable that I am not taking that to mean absolutely anything. I mean, when I first heard that, I just thought they meant that they're still having the old stock for the next year anyway, so they don't need to make an announcement. They're not going to do that before they need to. That's how I took that information, and even with this new palette in my hands, although I feel like it's definitely possible that they're never going to change the bake shades, I am definitely not 100% convinced that we won't still see that happen at some point with Pat Mcgrath Labs. I don't know, I think for now this is probably where I'm going to leave it with this saga. If I get any clarity at all whatsoever, I will definitely pass that along, but I just have a feeling we're not going to know very much until something actually changes and somebody gets one of these reformulated palettes in their hands. I will quickly pop up on the screen swatches of the bake shades so you can see for yourself that they are in fact not different, but unfortunately this video was not nearly as useful as I hoped it would be. We are still really in the dark about all of this, and yeah, I mean, I would still suggest picking up any of the older motherships that you're interested in sooner rather than later, but you certainly don't need to rush. And I definitely tried to find out as much as I could, but that seems to be the end of the line for right now. Anyway, I'm still going to be really interested to see what she comes out with Louis Vuitton, and hopefully at some point we'll get some amount of clarity, because that would be really great. This is my eye look today, and I'm really happy with it. Bronze Seduction was always one of my favorite palettes, so I'm happy to say that for now the formula is still intact. Anyway, with this order, my Dior highlight also came. I got it in shade 2 Gold Halo, which is the pinker between gold and nude halo, which is super confusing. But anyway, I can report back that it is very nice. I am not a fan of this Y2K packaging, but otherwise I do really like it. And I really hope today's video was helpful. I hope you're having a beautiful day or night wherever you are. I love you so much. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.